Hello, I'm Trapp. I'm a docent at the Tucson Museum of Art. And the lesson you're about to see today is a mini tour. I'm modeling for high school audience, and I've chosen two pieces from contemporary photography in the Contemporary Gallery. The creations that I made, the iPad tour, the photography images, and the worksheet will be available on the docent website, and you're welcome to download them, print them, use all or parts when you prepare your own high school tour. I hope it's helpful. Well, good morning, everyone. Welcome to the Tucson Museum of Art. My name is Mrs. Trapp, and I'll be your docent today. And it's great to have you with us. I can't think of a better place for a high school humanities class to come on a field trip than the Tucson Museum of Art. And I understand that right now you're studying the second half of the 20th century, which is perfect, because today we're going to focus on contemporary art, which, as you might know already, has been created post-1950s. Contemporary artists often deal with topics that address social, cultural, and environmental issues, and their work can shock people, can confront their viewers, or it can take a more subtle approach. But in either case, the goal is to raise awareness and consider some of the challenges of today. So today we're going to look at some of those challenges, and sometimes viewers, when they exit the museum, feel a strong call to action, which means that the artist has spoken directly to your heart. So our tour begins with Southwest photography today, and I'd like to start with this piece by Matthew Moore. So take just a minute now and look at this photograph without talking. I want to give you some time, spend some time observing details, colors, objects, patterns, whatever it is that you notice. So take just a few minutes to take a look at that. If you need to come closer, you're welcome, or stand back. Sometimes it's interesting to look at art from different lengths, up close, far away. Okay, the next thing that I'd like us to do before we begin having a conversation about this work of art is give you a moment to actually record some of the things that you noticed. So I'm going to hand everyone one of these, and there's a place for either writing your observations, what you noticed. Thank you, Catherine. Or you could write questions that you might have, or anything that you want to speculate on, any ideas that you have. Just take about 60 seconds to record some of those thoughts down. I'd like to know what it is that you noticed. So, who would like to share something that you noticed in this piece? Yes, Terry.
In the middle, it looks like one of those ancient paintings or line drawings that you see in the middle of the desert, like in Peru or somewhere.
Oh, do you see Terry is pointing to this shape right here? Does anybody else have any comments?
I think it looks like a floor plan.
You think it, okay, Catherine thinks it looks like a floor plan. You think it looks like something maybe from ancient Peru.
That's what it reminds me.
Sure. What else? Other things that you might have noticed?
I noticed all the citrus colors, the greens and yellows, and it looks like limes and lemons to me. And I'm wondering if this is a grove of citrus trees over here.
Okay, so you're looking at more of the patterns and the colors that go along with it, and wondering about what those different shades of green might actually be. Something else?
Mrs. Trapp, I'm wondering about the bottom part. It looks very unorganized, but in kind of an organized way, with all the vehicles and trailers and buildings.
Okay, so you're naming some of the objects that you're seeing, and you're noticing that there's a difference in a patterning from here. Up here, this looks more organized to you, and this looks more maybe in a state of disarray. And what else can you say about the difference between these two things?
Well, one looks man-made and the other one looks more natural.
Excellent, very good, yes. A lot of man-made devices or objects, machinery versus natural. Good observation.
Well, I see that, but I see man actually is all over this picture. I don't see anything that is organic nature, which I guess I mean like the woods or something.
Sure.
Man has touched this, but I guess what I might think is that this is a priority to him, so it's organized, it's purpose, and this is just a secondary part, which is sometimes in our life, you know, we kind of let things get messy because it's not the most important thing to us. Anyway.
So what I think I hear you saying, Kit, is that all of this has been touched by man.
Yeah.
Okay, but this seems to be a priority because it seems more organized or structured, and this seems to be maybe where the equipment goes at the end of the day after they're done working in this.
Your shoes in your closet are just thrown in, you know.
Good analogy. I like that. Okay, anything else?
Well, I'm thinking about the land use as to what it's actually planted in, and if the browner areas at the top are not planted at all, or if they're just first seeded.
Okay, maybe some of the land lying fallow. So now we're kind of talking about geography and these concepts of land use, how mankind uses the land. Here's an interesting question. I hadn't heard anyone bring it up yet, but what is the perspective that we're looking at here? Clearly it's a photograph, but where is the photographer in this image?
Isn't it a plane? Out of a plane window because of...
Kate is thinking it is a plane, and you're saying that because
You see that this structure down below.
maybe a plane window or helicopter or something going overhead. A drone? Yeah. Could be. Could be. All right. Well, this is one project that Matthew Moore, the photographer, took of this. Matthew Moore is not just an artist, but he is also a farmer. He's a fourth-generation farmer. And sadly, he has reason to believe that he might be the last of his family's farming generation. Why do you suppose that might be? Why would that be a concern for him?
Well, I think, if I'm right, a lot of farms are now government-owned, and so they're just big businesses, and the family farm is going away, and the land's getting used for different things.
Okay, so corporate farming, and he's also concerned about population growth at a pretty rapid rate, and concerns about suburbia and land expansion for homes, which raised a question to him about land use, and that's what he wants to talk about. So next I'd like to show you an image, another piece that he's created, and I have it here as well. I'll let you look at that one, and I'll show you which one they're looking at to start with. And then I'll let you look at this view. And this is the one that they're looking at.
Oh, sure.
And these are also created by Matthew. And it's sort of a zoom in, zoom out look, isn't it? Here, I'll let you look at this one.
Thank you.
And take a look in the distance of this one. Can you see the city? Yeah, yeah, yeah.
This is saying what you said. This to me says this is exactly what I'm afraid of. None of this will exist because the city will move here, but plot by plot it'll be converted.
Yes.
So the land use is changing from farming to housing.
And so in Matthew Moore's generation, as a fourth family farmer, he's been watching his family farmland of 100 acres get sold off bit by bit. And what you're looking at when you look at this image is a plot of land. Well, let me back up just a minute. What this is, you said this looked like a floor plan. And it is a floor plan that he planted on 20 acres. It's 20 acres of barley. And this piece is called Rotations, Single Family Residence. So the play on words there of rotations talks about what? As a farmer, what does crop rotation, and rotation in terms of land use, moving from one to another.
So this is kind of saying the future won't be crop rotation, but more development on this plot of land.
That's possibly what he's saying, and he's planted a 20-acre parcel of barley and created this floor plan to show that the crops are being exchanged for housing, right? Okay.
Is the house also being replaced? I mean, that looks like it could be a farmer's home in the middle of the orchard there.
Because this is his family's farm,
okay.
yeah, and he still lives there. But this is a statement that he wanted to make because he wants to raise awareness that family farms are in danger at this point. Now this one that I showed you earlier is 35 acres, and this is a blueprint for a suburban subdivision just outside of Phoenix, and that's where Matthew Moore's farm is, his family farms in Surprise, Arizona. And this development was on the books. His grandfather sold the 35 acres, and he drew up this plan for housing complex. And Matthew, to make a statement, planted the homes in sorghum, that's the green, and the roads in wheat.
Oh, wow. I thought it was an actual subdivision.
I did
We
too.
were looking at the roofs.
It looks just like the Mountain houses.
Exactly, exactly. It's pretty clever, isn't it? So asking us to think about what's happening to the land. And here you can see Phoenix and the suburbs and then the land. And as I said, he started with 100 acres and the family is slowly selling off the acreage for development. So he has done these scaled models of these homes, and he says, you might be wondering why a farmer from Phoenix, Arizona, how I got involved in art. And his response is what art is so good at is asking questions. And so he started asking questions once his young son was born, and wondering about what was going to happen in his son's future. And the questions were, why does this make sense? Why is this a better use of land than this? And he doesn't offer the answers. He only raises awareness and gets us to start thinking about how we use land. From there, he started visually documenting farmland post-World War II and sharing his findings. And you know, the big takeaway from his work of art is this sense of loss of a way of life that he had in his family for past generations. But I think it's also hopeful too, because he's using his knowledge to educate other people and to ask them questions, get other people to think about, how do we create crops? How do we grow our agriculture? In fact, you can watch a TED Talk on YouTube of Matthew Moore, talking about crops and agriculture, about what he calls placemaking, and about sustainability. He is now busy making videos of plants from the time they're in their seeds growing out of the ground into full harvest, blossom, and then putting them in grocery stores next to the broccoli or the carrots or wherever they're grown, so that children and people who have never experienced farm life can see the magic that can happen from the earth. And he's documenting all of this while it's still with us. So pretty interesting image. Take just a minute longer and write down anything else that strikes you now that we've talked about that might not have caught your attention before. Even if it's go home and watch Matthew Moore's TED Talk. Anyone want to share any final thoughts on Matthew Moore, the farmer, artist, and videographer? You know what's interesting about contemporary artists too is that they create installations often, right? So they work in multimedia. So he started with farmland, then he went to photography, then he turned the land into environmental art and photographed it. And now he's making videos with other videographers and friends of his to take the word out to young people about farming and the importance.
Well, I wonder if this is in Phoenix, I know water is always a big issue. Will they use more water if it's all developed for people, or is it better if it stays in farmland? And the other question I keep, if we take up all the farmland for people, where are we going to have food come from?
Right.
I think to me, those are big questions too.
They are big questions. And I haven't lived here that long, but I know down around Suarita, I think it is, there are pecan orchards that farmers planted way back in the day, and I think that takes a lot of water too. And I'm not sure to water a pecan orchard if it takes more water than to put in one of these types of developments where everyone's taking showers and running their dishwasher, right? And so on. So those are questions that I think more is hoping that we all start asking, and maybe that is the call to action that he wants us to take. So we're right now in the Joyce Brown Gallery, which houses our contemporary art. And as you can see from looking around in the gallery, contemporary artists deal with a wide variety of materials. And their job is to be innovative and challenge traditional thinking and come up with new ways to sometimes shock us, to sometimes confront us with difficult issues, or on a more subtle level, sometimes artists like to just present ideas that leave us pondering, and if we listen carefully to the artist's message, maybe even a call to action from a piece of art that we think about a little bit later. But what draws me to contemporary art that I love so much is I love the ambiguity of it. I love how it's like putting together a puzzle, which is just something I like to do. And the longer I look at a piece of contemporary art, the more questions I have and the more puzzle pieces I find. I don't always find the pieces to put together, but it tickles my brain. It gives me things to think about. So I'd like to spend some time looking at this particular piece of art. Take a minute to just look at it and think about first impressions. Where does your eye go? Don't say it out loud. Just think about it for a minute as you're looking at it. Notice in your mind's eye what draws you and where your eye travels. And just to let you know, contemporary artists, well, all artists, create things where nothing is accidental. But in this particular piece, you might look at it and say, really? That's art? But actually, the artist was very purposeful in everything here. Nothing is accidental. Everything was intentional on the part of this artist. Sometimes the stories that art tells are like little whispered secrets. And so I want you to think about what some of the secrets are that this art is telling right now. And to do that, we're going to do a little exercise that involves perspective taking. So I'm going to ask you to partner up, and I need 3 groups. And I need one group to volunteer to take the role of the windmill. You will be the windmill? Okay, if you look in the folder, you'll see some images of the windmill. And what I'd like you to do with your partner is imagine what it would be like to be a windmill standing in the middle of a farm field. What would you see? What would you care about? What would you observe? I want you to be ready to tell a story from the windmill's perspective in a little while. Okay? All right, I need a second group that would be willing to explore the didactic, which is this here. And this, as you might know from other trips to the museum, is the label, and it gives you background information on the art, the materials it's made out of and such. And I have enclosed here several more bits of information on this artist that's not up here in the works of art. I'd like someone to talk about that, explore that, read about the didactic, read about the artist creation, and I want you to think about the materials that the artist used and how that tells a story that also connects to this work of art. And then this group, I would like you to write a found poem. Have you heard of a found poem in your English class? Okay, well, a found poem is a contemporary poem. It's a prose poem, which means it doesn't have to rhyme. And a found poem is a little bit easier to write because you use words that you find. And so the words are already provided for you. So the challenge is to take some of these words, and I have them on this sheet for you as well, and shorten them and write a poem that comes to mind based on the language here. So you can approach the painting or you can look at the words in the folder. And I will give you about maybe 2 or 3 minutes to work on this. And feel free to come close and read the didactic or look at the painting from far away, from close up, and use your imaginations to think about what it would be like to live on or be a part of farm life. Let's come back together, and I'd like to hear from each breakout group. So if we could start with the perspective of the windmill. Tell us the story of your life.
Okay, well, we said that the windmill is talking now, and the windmill says, I am very tall, and I look over the plains. I don't know if I have the energy to continue to bring water to this land. The wind blows hot and hard and strong, and I sway in the wind and wonder how long I will be sad and how long this will last. It is so desolate here, and I stand in my desolation.
Thank you very much. Gave us a lot to think about. And then group 2, you were going to tell us about the materials that the artist used.
Well, we noticed that there were 3 pieces put together to form one piece of art. And
3 panels?
3 panels.
Okay.
And it looks like they took each panel and put it over maybe a barn door or something and rubbed it so that the pattern would come through like you did with leaves when you were a little kid.
Are you seeing that here? Okay.
And especially in the windmill panel where you see the eyes of the wood, like the knots in the wood.
Okay. All right. Well, on this tour, we've looked at 2 different artists and how they deal with the same topic, the disappearance of the family farms across the United States. And they've used 2 very different approaches, photography and almost this folk art Americana style. So I'd like you to consider this one, Rotation, Single Family Residence by Matthew Moore, and Farm Ghosts by Harmony Hammond. And think about how they're the same, different. Which one is more effective to you? Which one has more of an impact? I'm not sure that either one you might say that you like or that it makes you feel comfortable, but which one has more of a lasting impact to you? Choosing works of art that deal with current issues is a great way to encourage students to be in the museum and really get conversations going and really get them personally involved in artwork. And I think they'll be more willing to be involved in the work if the topics are relevant. So for today, I chose 2 topics dealing with the current issue of environment and population, social, cultural, environmental issues. Lots to think about, lots to go back in your classroom and have conversations about, and to think about as you start considering careers for your future as well. So thank you very much for sharing your observations, your thoughts, and your emotions. Appreciate it. Enjoy the rest of the museum.